As you can see, I am already in my pajamas, but I just saw on the news Bryan Kohberger has already been extradited, and I want to take this opportunity to talk about and share some updates. I've been following this since it started about 6 weeks ago. There were 4 college students living off campus at the University of Idaho, just outside in the Greek zone, off campus in a kind of a popular party house. The situation is that he was extradited today. Super interesting because he was arrested on December 30th and waived extradition in a Pennsylvania hearing this morning. Media asked, do you think he'll be extradited tonight? They shared that in the court order, they have up to 10 days and said that it was highly unlikely that it would be tonight. But of course, it was tonight. But that's sort of the point. Is 1, they definitely wanted to hurry it up, and 2, they want it to not be anticipated, right? For tactical and security reasons. So anyway, he came in tonight in Moscow Regional Airport. Interesting, he was transferred on the tarmac to looked like a gray pickup truck, and was taken in a convoy, of course, of officers to the Layton County Jail. Leading up to his arrest was about 19,000 tips from the public, specifically connected to this Elantra, this white Elantra that was seen on site that they knew or believed was to be associated. So after the murders, Bryan actually drove across the country from Washington, about 8 to 9 miles from the scene of the crime in Idaho, just over the border. But he didn't drive alone. He drove with his dad. His dad had flown out to Washington or Idaho nearby, and then drove with his son. Or I think it was maybe like either dash cam or body cam footage showing up that was supposedly done of a stop or one of 2 potential stops during that trip. And they're also saying that there was some maintenance done during the trip on that white Elantra. That could be completely innocent during a road trip or in the vicinity of a road trip, but it also could be really fishy. We're talking about the car potentially having been at a crime scene. So I don't know. It can be about removal of evidence and things like that. So speaking of the car, on December 30th, the police essentially raided the home of Bryan Kohberger's parents where he was staying with a probable cause warrant. Basically meet a higher burden of probable cause than a normal warrant. So they served 3 warrants at that time. 1 was for Bryan Kohberger's person. The other was for the search, the family home for Bryan Kohberger and any evidence in it. The 3rd, as I understand it, was a warrant for the car, that Elantra, that they believe to be the Elantra, which they now have impounded and is evidence, right? So good old-fashioned detective work led to this suspect. What they did was collected DNA from the crime scene, and they run crime scene DNA through their database of known criminals that have DNA samples. What they found was there wasn't anybody in their system. They say they pursued it with as much diligence as any case, etc. But I do believe that because it was so high profile, they had more resources to devote, and therefore they were able to kind of go up more trees in this situation. I ended up matching the DNA from the scene of the crime to DNA that was connected to a relative of Bryan Kohberger. And they did it through a genealogical website where this person put out their DNA results to look for relatives. So they found that, they matched it close enough to show that a relative of this person who donated DNA was at the crime scene. And that, I'm presuming, was considered sufficient probable cause. Serving after dark meets an additional standard of probable cause and using force on the building, as we mentioned, does. So there had to have been something in there that was pretty substantial. So it'd be like the nature of the crime. So the 2 combined. They broke down some windows. I understand, I'm not sure if there were doors, but there was glass broken. So this would have been rather like startling and violent for the people involved. maybe not. Bryan Kohberger was expecting it, but I suspect maybe the parents were not, although there have been some people questioning, why did the dad fly out to drive him out for the holiday? Why not fly him out if we wanted him to come home? Maybe it was one-on-one time, maybe it was something more than that. We don't know. The police don't seem to suspect anything of the parents. Outstanding questions right now because of the nature of the wounds from the victims. They say Kaylee Gonzalez's wounds were, it seems, more targeted. So they're exploring the connection that this suspect might have had to the victims, but it doesn't necessarily have been a two-way connection. It could be that he knew her or he knew them, but they didn't know him, or it could have been for them a passing connection, or it could potentially be the stalker that people had said Haley referenced having. We don't know. We do know about Bryan Kohberger that he was awkward with women, that overweight and socially ostracized kid in school. Reports say turned to substance use in a very unhealthy way, which led to menacing disposition, I guess, or morose disposition, and made it more aggressive and more kind of socially outcast. Some of his friends from school have been very outspoken. Childhood friends have been outspoken about how kind of awkward he was. One of them, a TikToker, came out and talked about how she tried to do him a favor by giving him a ride, and he made her drive around looking for needles and heroin. So I don't know if this is true or not. People love notoriety through association, but it does seem she seems pretty genuine. So I really want to comment on this whole, he was a criminology student, and I want to comment on this creepy survey that he put up on Reddit. So much has been made about this suspect, Bryan Kohberger, being a student of criminology. He had studied Yale University and earned his master's degree. He was working as a security guard for around a decade. He was a PhD candidate who had just completed his first semester. He had also put up a retrospectively creepy post on Reddit asking for criminals to talk about the state of mind that they were in when they were making decisions about the most recent crimes that they'd committed. It was specifically asking for felons. What I do want to say about this is that knowing what he did and knowing what we do, allegedly, we can put the pieces together and say if he allegedly did this, then he was doing more than academic study when he was thinking about the answers to these questions and when he was formulating the questions. And that, in retrospect, makes them very, very creepy. But the fact that these questions are asked and studied is not. So I kind of feel the need to defend the study of criminology as someone who has studied it and has considered going for a PhD in it. We are well aware, the field is well aware, people who belong to a deviant subculture, right, to try to seek legitimacy through employment in a way that's related to that culture, so they can exercise their social deviant tendencies in a way that can be accepted within society. Maybe it's the firebug who embeds himself in society by becoming a firefighter. This is a very legitimate study, and seeking to understand deviance is not the same as embracing deviance. Sometimes you gotta have a little bit of deviance within you to find it interesting. There's a wide range of such things. Being fascinated with the extremes, our understanding that which we don't approve of has a value. Majority of people who study these things do so legitimately without being sinister. Really irritates me that this guy was studying it, and there's this idea that the program would have been teaching him how to commit the perfect crime. A program in criminology, no matter what it teaches you, cannot teach you how to commit a perfect crime. There is no perfect crime. Also very interesting, all the warrants are sealed because under Idaho law, they have to be sealed until he actually is arraigned after extradition. That's it. Like and subscribe. We will keep giving updates. I will keep giving updates. Pete will help because I am following this case very closely and I have lots and lots of opinions. And if you're wondering why I have all these opinions, I got my bachelor's in criminology, my master's in public policy. This is a fascination to me. And, you know, this case from the beginning has been unusual. So, yeah, I'm going to be following it. Have a great night. Stay salty. Stay safe.